Blessing.
Yes, the meeting is being recorded and now we are live.
Very much. Good evening, everyone. It is 7:02 p.m. on August 23rd, 2021. This is the Milford Board of Education business meeting. If everybody could please rise wherever they are and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Ms. Griffin, can we have a roll call attendance, please?
Adam DeYoung.
Here.
Megan Doyle.
Here.
Andrew Fowler.
Here.
Rita Hennessy. I don't think she's with us yet.
We'll be a few minutes late.
Emily McDonough Souza.
Here.
Warren Pulowski.
Here.
Una Petrosky.
Here.
Betsy Ratner.
Here.
Cindy Wolf Boynton.
Here.
And Susan Glennon.
Here.
9 members present.
Thank you very much. Ms. Griffin, please keep an eye out for Ms. Hennessy as well. All right, we'll move on to public comment. We have a number of people who signed up for public comment this evening. So first, let me read the public comment statement. Speakers may offer objective comments about school operations and programs. The board encourages speakers not to express personal complaints or defamatory comments about the Milford Board of Education personnel or any person associated with Milford Public Schools. Security issues and matters relating to negotiations and grievances will not be permitted. Consistent with the principles of the Federal Education Right to Privacy Act, discussion of students is prohibited absent parental waiver. Public comment does not allow for two-way conversation between speakers and the board. We welcome and appreciate your comments and opinions, and we'll take all into consideration. Please note our meetings are televised and live streamed on YouTube. We ask that you state your name and your address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. So when I call on you, we will activate your microphone so you can be heard. Mr. Fowler is our timekeeper. He will signal when you have 15 seconds left, and we ask that you wrap up your comments at that time. He will signal time at 3 minutes and your microphone will be muted. We have a number of speakers tonight, so we would appreciate if speakers could be concise in their comments. Thank you very much. And I will call on Nancy Herman. Let's see, where did Miss Herman go? Nancy Herman, the floor is yours, Nancy. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Nancy Herman, 33 Shell Avenue, Milford, Connecticut. And first of all, I'd like to thank the Board of Education for considering my request tonight to rename the current Foreign High School tennis courts in honor of my late father, Richard A. Herman. And I would like to take a moment to explain why I feel this dedication is appropriate and meaningful. My father believed wholeheartedly in a liberal arts public education for everyone, and he dedicated the entirety of his professional life to promoting and protecting education here in Milford. After he returned from World War II, he began his career at Milford High School as a history teacher, and he went on to serve as its vice principal and its principal. And eventually he became the associate superintendent of secondary education here in town. And it was in that capacity that he was given the task of overseeing the design and the construction of Foreign High School. He threw himself into every aspect of that job with great enthusiasm. I can remember it. And he was thrilled to ensure that Foreign High School had state-of-the-art facilities, including a swimming pool, a planetarium, and yes, a tennis court. Dad himself was an avid tennis player until he was almost 90. After he retired and until his death, my father personally funded a small scholarship at each of the 2 remaining Milford high schools. And the only requirement that he put in place was that the stipend should go to a nice college-bound senior in need of some financial help. The family has continued to offer those stipends in his honor. Last but not least, because I don't know how much time I have, I think it is relevant that Dad's 2 mentors throughout his career, men whom he truly respected and admired and considered dear friends were Joe Foran and Herb French. He loved and respected both of them, and he spent lots of hours working for and with them on behalf of education in Milford. Right now, the tennis courts belonging to Foran High School, so named for Joe Foran, are located on French Drive, so named for Herb French. And I know that my father would be delighted to have the tennis courts, situated as they are, allow his name to be forever associated with theirs and with secondary education in Milford. Again, I thank you for considering my request, and I hope that you will rename the Foran High School tennis courts the Richard A. Herman Memorial Tennis Courts. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Herman. Next, we have Ann Blake. We could promote Ann. Ann, the floor is yours.
Can you
Hello,
hear me?
Ann.
Yeah, I'm Ann Greenstone Blake, and I live at 5 River Edge in Milford. And members of the Board of Education, thank you for considering the request to name the tennis courts at Foran High for Richard A. Herman. This would be a most appropriate tribute to a dedicated, longtime Milford educator. When Foran was opened in 1973, I think, the teachers, most of whom had requested to come to Milford to teach at Foran, had been to this new state-of-the-art school, had been hired by Dick Herman. Some had worked with him at good old Milford High, and others at Jonathan Law, where he was the assistant superintendent in charge of secondary ed. He was inspirational. He was the acting principal for a very short time when Foran just opened, but he set the tone of professionalism and student-focused education. Dick Herman hired Vito DeVito, Edna Frazier, and Kenny Walker, all of whom he worked with, I worked with, and these Foran High institutions have already been honored by athletic facilities at Foran High. Herman was deeply respected by the staff at Foran High as an educator, and the parents and citizens and everybody in Milford also respected Dick Herman. He was recognized as a scholar, an exceedingly fair administrator, and an innovator, as well as an avid and accomplished tennis player. He taught me to play almost 70 years ago, so I know this, and I sometimes hear his voice in my head saying, "Cover the alleys, get your first serve in," still to this day. So, and I was also among the very early faculty at Foran High, so I know how much they regarded him. So that's all I can say, but I thank you very much for considering our request.
Thank you, Ms. Blake. Okay, next we have Kristen Pond. The floor is yours, Ms. Pond.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Board of Ed, for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Kristen Pond. I am at 83 Cricklewood Road in Milford, Connecticut. Just wanted to say good evening to everyone, and that I'm here tonight as a concerned parent of 2 children in the Milford School District. I have a 10-year-old starting 5th grade and a 4-year-old starting pre-K4. Over this last just about 2 years, I've seen a drastic change in my daughter's personality as well as interests and hobbies. All of this had started shortly after having masks and new procedures in the Milford Public Schools regarding COVID-19. My daughter was a social butterfly. She was a child with really no fear. She tried so many different activities and was very outgoing. She was open to learning new things, getting to know new people, helping anybody who she saw along the way. Since the beginning of the mask mandates and the new procedures at school, she's become more reclusive. She's become more fearful and shows little interest in trying new things. She has not continued with dance, which she has been doing since the age of 1.5. Everything requiring masks and social distancing has been a challenge. Things don't look the same nor feel the same. The light in my daughter's eyes when she was in school with her friends or dancing is now a sliver of what it was. My daughter's light has been dimmed because of the constant talk, the constant pressures of this pandemic, and mandates of mask wearing and antisocial activities and learning environments. You see, at home for us, I don't speak about this in front of my children. If they have questions, of course, my husband and I will answer them. But I'm trying to savor what time I have left for them to be just children. I don't want them walking around terrified to hug someone, terrified to show their face, afraid to sneeze or cough near somebody with seasonal allergies for fear people will be talking that they have COVID. How can we possibly expect our children to learn in an environment that stifles growth? We're keeping everyone separate, not leaving classrooms for lunch, not joining other grades outside at recess. They're sitting in a box all day. Not only a physical box, but they're also sitting in a box of their own emotions. Our children's mental health is being negatively affected by these requirements. If you look at the numbers and the facts, you'll see this. Suicide attempts in children ages 12 to 17 has increased by 50.6% since COVID-19 lockouts and mask wearing began. ER visits from April 2020 to October 2020 due to mental health anxiety issues has risen 25% in children ages 5 to 11 and 31% in children ages 12 to 17. This is clearly a greater health and life risk for our children than actually contracting COVID-19. My daughter stated to me how she felt isolated at school. She didn't see many of her friends, and her teacher even had problems understanding and hearing the students.
We need you to wrap it up, Ms. Pond. Your time is up.
Okay, I'm almost done. I'm so sorry. The inability to bond with her teachers and peers is detrimental to our child's development. Masking is proven psychological stressor for our children and a disruptive in learning. We have to start listening to our children. We need to start looking at the effect it's having on them and their mental health. We've been doing this for 2 years, and we need to know when it ends. Parents should absolutely have a choice in their child's health decisions, not only physical as well as mental. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Terry Smith. Ms. Smith, if you want to I think I tried to unmute
Sorry,
you. Go.
I didn't realize that that I have to unmute myself. Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Terry Smith. I live at 90 Snow Apple Lane. I think we've gotten too far away from how things used to be here, run at the Milford Public Schools. Let's remember how this is supposed to work. The taxpayers vote in the Board of Ed candidates. The Board of Ed candidates are responsible for hiring the superintendent. The superintendent answers to the Board of Ed and therefore represents the taxpayers of Milford. Currently, the taxpayers and most importantly, the parents have no voice. Major decisions are being made that directly affect our most precious assets. Medical decisions, medical advice, and unresearched medical interventions are being implemented without the consent and agreement of the parents. In the past, when major changes came, there would be surveys and open forums and ways for people to express their concerns and receive real answers. At the very least, there would be emails informing parents of these changes. This is no longer the case. About the masks, clearly parents are not happy. According to a local study that went out on a local Milford Facebook page, about 63% of Milford residents believe it should be the parent's choice. You have not demanded research on masks and their negative effect on the children. According to the Milford Health Department, any research that is available on the negative impacts is not being considered in this decision. The school has put out no survey about the masks with the excuse that we are under emergency mandates from the government. Is the Board of Ed voted in by the governor? Is the superintendent hired by the governor? No, they're voted in and hired by the taxpayers of the Milford, and that is who you are supposed to answer to. What if, say, 63% of Milford parents said they didn't want their kids in masks? Would you care? Would you stand up for them? Would you file suit against the state like so many other districts throughout the country are doing and demand the right to choose what is best for the people that you represent? Unfortunately, you can't do that because you don't even know what they want. Why is it that we can hold the Oyster Fest with thousands of drunk people up against each other and in close proximity, but we can't allow our children to go to school and breathe freely in a controlled classroom? This is not logical, and at some point, someone has to be accountable for blindly following the nonsensical and tyrannical mandates. Why is it that all other city board meetings take place in person, but the Board of Ed meetings cannot? Again, not logical. I truly believe that the board meetings have not been in person to avoid people like me showing up. The bottom line is when there is an issue of great controversy like masks, the people deserve a voice. One thing I know for certain is that it's the parents who know what's best for their children, not Ned Lamont, and no offense, not you either. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Next, we have Mr. Craig Zankovich. Let's see. You can unmute your microphone.
All right.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Craig Zankovich of 100 River Cliff Drive. I want to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to speak. After listening to last month's public comments and some current comments, I just find myself among the vocal minority / scientific majority regarding the need for masks in our public schools, given it's currently the only means to protect our children under the age of 12 from COVID. Parents currently advocating for mask-free schooling their children are putting aside the health and safety of other children and their families under the guise of masks being detrimental to their children's health, whether it be mental or physical, and ability to learn. Aside from fringe studies conducted by European scientists about lethal levels of carbon dioxide, or citing an inherently biased Facebook study, parents are simply acting irresponsibly by requesting the state's mask mandate be lifted in public schools. I get it, some social media memes can be really convincing for those who have an aversion to research. But what message are parents sending their children when they tell them they shouldn't have to wear masks or get vaccinated if of age? The scientists are lying, your municipal government's lying. Are parents actually willing to tell their children the truth? You may get sick and die, or you may not. We'll see. I have a young niece currently attending JFK. She wears a mask everywhere she goes. She's 7 and she understands the repercussions of those who choose to neither get the vaccine nor wear a mask. She said, quote, "Don't these people care about anyone but themselves," end quote. She gets it. And it's now well documented that children are getting sick, showing serious symptoms of, and even dying from COVID. Currently, more than 400 children nationwide have died from COVID since the start of the pandemic. Unfortunately, the longer people oppose mask mandates for their children, both in school and in public, the higher that number is going to get. This is not a partisan issue. This is not a personal rights and freedoms issue. This is a public health issue. I plead with all of the parents questioning the science of masks and the vaccines to err on the side of caution for your children's sake. Take the time to objectively investigate the science of wearing masks and getting vaccinated. I've yet to hear a report from any ICU across the country where a COVID sufferer or casualty said they're glad they never wore a mask or received the vaccine. It's always the opposite, and it's often too late. The bottom line is this. As a former member of this board, we've always been beholden to state laws and policies regarding health issues in our public schools. In this case, masking requirements and social distancing when necessary.
15 seconds.
If the school mandates that all public school students must wear a mask, then that's the end of the debate, period. I want to thank you very much for your time, and it's great to see all of you.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Smith. Mr. Smith. There we go.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to me tonight. I actually came just to speak against the masking this evening. I wanted to thank you all for the opportunity of speaking for this. At this time, we know that the emergency has slowed down a little bit. We now have been given another variant. We don't know when this is going to end. It seems to be a continuing issue. When we give power to people, they tend to take the power and continue to keep the power and not give it back to the people again. We've seen this in history before. This has played out in the past. My concern is that now that some people have had this power of emergency powers, they're using it now to control everyone with regards to vaccines and masking. I'm a little concerned that they are not understanding maybe what the long-term effects of these things are, including what the psychological issues are with the children that are being masked. Currently, my stepson is a student in foreign high. He has a medical issue that makes it difficult for him to breathe. In his current state, especially during allergy season, it's nearly impossible for him to breathe with a mask on. In the last year, when he wasn't able to breathe, he was given the opportunity to do distance learning at home. They're not allowing that anymore, from what I understand, the next year. So I'm a little concerned about the medical discrimination that's happening against our children who are not going to be allowed to be vaccinated. But currently, they've been kicked out of New York City, as we know, through our mayor there and other institutions. We're making a two-tier system with two different types of people here in America. And America generally should be the land of the free, the home of the brave. I think we all agree with that. We should all have our liberties. We should all have our desires and the right to try to have a happy life here. And it seems to me like a lot of very powerful people are trying to take that away from our children and those of us who can be discriminated on these facts, these other medical issues. So anyway, I urge the board to, see the need to look into other research about masking, and hopefully you guys can come up with another solution that doesn't require all of our children to be masks, all at once, where, I think psychologically, it's determined that at a very early age, they are going to be impacted by not seeing other people's faces and things. Okay?
15 seconds.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, do you mind sharing your address for the record?
It's 90 Snow Apple Lane.
Thank you so much. Thank you for speaking. You're complete, right? You're done? All right. Next we have Jackie Paulson. Is Jackie on? I don't see her. Oh, are you okay? Are you troop 38328, Jackie? Jackie, are you troop 38328?
I am, and I'm hoping
thank
now
you.
I can change my name on here because I couldn't change it before.
Okay. You're okay, as long as we know this is you.
All right. Sorry about that. I really want to change that.
Your address for the record, please.
It's 222 Oregon Avenue North, and that's in Milford. I want to thank you for having me. I just wanted to start out with a quote. One of the great challenges of this world is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right, but not enough about a subject to know you're wrong. Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm here to thank our local experts, Dr. Kutaya and Deepa Joseph, for their amazing work in communications over this past 18 months. I fully trust our officials and their decisions that will keep our kids safe. My family and I sincerely thank you. Through your leadership and commitment to education and safety, I believe we can start the school year in person, full-time, and safely due to the COVID mitigation plans set forth, including universal vaccines and masks. Also to be noted is the clarity of which the fluid plan has been communicated to all of us. Many of us have become self-educated over the last few months and hold fast to our internet and Facebook learnings. I challenge you to track your information to its source and gauge its validity. For example, that study of carbon dioxide and masks was conducted by Harold Wallach. He does have a PhD. It's in parapsychology, and I had to look that up. It's the study of the alleged psychic phenomenon like hypnosis, telepathy, and so on. Also in Florida, they have now at least 7 school districts that are in open defiance of their governor's mask banning mandate. So they are requiring masks now that they've had a bad turnout. Both Dr. Kutaya and Ms. Joseph have committed their lives to public health and education. Ms. Joseph, with a master's degree in public health, has been working in the field for 20 years. And Dr. Kutaya earned a doctorate in education. That's 12 years of schooling, and has worked in this field for almost 30 years. Let's give them some credit. Our local decision makers meet and engage with industry leaders, local and nationally, on a regular basis to guide these important decisions regarding all of our children. Masks are safe. Wash them with soap and water. get a better fit so your glasses don't fog up, and teach kids empathy and science. Sometimes we all must do for others when it would just be easier to do whatever we wish for only ourselves. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paulson. Next, we have, I hope I'm saying your last name correctly, Michael Dykey.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Did I say your name correctly, Dykey? Mr.
Yeah, Mike
Dykey?
Dykey, 130 Castle Lane. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I know we've already addressed the mask issues. I agree with pretty much what I've heard, so we're not going to beat that to death. The other issue that I thought would have been spoken about already is this CRT, critical race theory, or some offshoot thereof. I know Dr. Kataya recently addressed that a few days ago and said that it was untrue, that that's what's being taught. But a lot of us just have questions about this equity and engagement and exactly what that means and why that position was created and why there was a need for that. You know, I know they say, you say it's not CRT, and maybe it's just, like I said, some offshoot of that, but there's a lot of buzzwords going around that are concerning to many of us. Equitable, progressive, equity, inequity, social justice, microaggressions, critical self-reflection, racial bias, systemic change. I mean, basically, if it is CRT, why don't, and you believe in that, why not just call it that? Why disguise it as something else? And if it's not, basically, what is it? You know, a lot of us have real concerns about that. We would just like, I know you can't answer questions now, but we would like some clarification as to what's being taught in the context of equity being used in education and engagement. You know, what exactly are our kids being engaged in? We just like some clarification in that and to see what's really being taught here in the school. And that's it. I appreciate the opportunity.
Mr. Dykey.
Thank you.
Next, we have Tanya Ungar.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Sorry about that. Good afternoon or good evening, actually. My name's Tanya Ungar. I live on 21 Sumner Avenue. And I want to thank you all tonight for allowing me to come and speak in opposition of mask mandates and in the Milford Public School System, and to advocate for parental choice. As a citizen and parent of citizens of the town of Milford, Connecticut, my children, along with other children residing in the District of Milford, are guaranteed by law the right to a free public education, free of discrimination, as outlined in the Connecticut Constitution, Article 8, and the Connecticut statutes titled 10-4A, 4B, and 15C. As elected officials to the Board of Education, you've taken an oath to uphold these rights, and it's for these rights I'd like to speak about tonight. Chapter 170, 10-220 outline in great detail the duties of the Board of Education. In particular, I'd like to highlight your duty to provide each child with adequate instruction, including all educational materials affiliated with that instruction, equitable allocation of all resources and sources, proper maintenance of facilities, and proper particular, I'd like to address the statute for proper air filtration and ventilation in our schools, and to provide a safe setting for our children to be educated in. I'd like to take a minute to discuss a little bit more the safety precautions as it pertains to the facilities in general and the maintenance thereof. As your duties provide our children the safe education and free of discrimination, I'd like to talk about and focus on this statute, 220. And talk about other possible solutions and alternatives to masking our children that are safer for our children and have proven to be more effective than masks wearing. I know that the HIPAA filters and filtration systems had been suggested and companies provided to our superintendent for review. And I believe the follow-up and feedback has not been provided. I'm not sure exactly where we stand on that, but I think it would be an important piece of information to share with the District of Milford. Not sure if most people understand or know that that these HIPAA filters are 99.9% effective in filtering out COVID virus, and therefore 100% more effective than masking our children, which we've already discussed, other people have discussed it being harmful in multiple ways, including their mental health and their overall well-being. I guess tonight I'm a little, I really want to focus more on not what side people are on, mask or no mask, but to really bring to the board the opportunity to take up other, probably.
It's time.
We need you to wrap it up, Ms. Unger.
Oh,
Time is
thank
up.
you. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. Thank you very much. These alternatives such as like plexiglass around the children's desks, like it was provided for teachers, and other alternatives would be a better solution so that all of our children can go back to school and be educated as outlined by the Constitution, the state constitution, and our statutes.
Thank you very much for speaking tonight. Next, we have Rich and Allie. I'm not sure if they are on. Rich and Allie, I don't see them. Okay, we'll move on to Jeff. Is it Jeff N? There you go.
Thanks. I just want to take a little bit of time to, point out that clearly people don't do a lot of research. I do agree with that. The CDC states that masks are absolutely effective. They have no doubt in it, and they have 3 studies in mind. One of the studies has 2 hairstylists that they studied. One where they self-examined men on ships, right? They were out to sea. They had a lot of feedback, so it was a self-reported study. And then they had another one with about 200 and something studies. And, they really talk very poorly about the study they had in Denmark that had about 3,000 people in it, where they proved, or so they say, that masks are not effective. The CDC doesn't agree with it because it was a very, very small study in comparison to what they have on their side, right? That makes a lot of sense. Masks, to me, tend to be a concern because of Bill HR 748, which is the CARES Act. If you care to review that, section 3103. This is another revision that was added later on into this bill after it was originally passed. This section revises targeted liability protections in respect to certain claims arising from the use of respiratory devices, i.e. masks, approved by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, by OSHA, right? Such protection shall apply if HHS declares such device to be a priority for the use and declaration of public health. So what does that mean? They have impunity from any lawsuits, right? Just like the vaccine manufacturers do. Anything that is inherently safe obviously has zero risk, which means you need protection from lawsuits, protection from torts, right? That's what it's called, is TORT. It is a very specific type of product liability that most people have to carry for any type of business. I used to have a CBD business in the state before they legalized marijuana and basically kind of put us to the side. With that being said, I had to have a lot of insurance to sell products. went ahead of business. They don't have to have any. There's a compensation fund. I'm not sure how you guys feel, but this sure does feel a whole lot like an 1800s snake oil salesman who just says, drink this, and if everybody else drinks it, you're going to be fine too. I don't know about you guys. I don't like being sold, especially to people that have nothing to answer for if they hurt us. So you can trust whoever you want. They should not have impunity.
Thank you for your comments. I don't know your last name. Do you mind sharing your address with us
That's
for the record?
301 Wolf Harbor Road.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Sarah. There you go, Sarah, you're unmuted.
Okay. Hi, Sarah. Robert Street Drive. So I'm a paraprofessional. I work with high needs students in a nearby school district, which I'm not going to name. Even among the adults, there's not a single person in school who wears the masks in a way that does not promote germ spread, according to the CDC itself. And the mask does, in fact, gather germs and all kinds of moist bodily fluids and place them in reach of everybody, especially children who are touching and messing with them all day. They touch them inside, outside, they play with them, they breathe on them. They certainly do not do what you think they do. And it's particularly true of the high needs students who universally use them as chew toys and constantly have literal puddles of spit, food, and who knows what else inside of them. There's no reason for those students in particular to be forced into wearing them. And it's a waste of time to try to put them on them. It also provides a vector for those of us who work with them to contact their bodily fluids all day. I have several students who literally only drooled when masked, not without it. And that's nothing to say nothing of the general eds, the kids who had wet masks, who gasped for air during even the mildest of gym activities, who developed disgusting illnesses, rashes, and irritations at alarming rates from having to wear wet saliva, moist cloths on their faces for 7 to 8 hours, 5 days per week. They can't hear each other. They can't hear the cheers, which is frustrating to everybody. And everybody's on edge. They can't see each other's faces or peers, which is, by the way, an incredibly foolish thing to push on students with social disorders or students or adults who are hard of hearing or require the ability to read lips. If you've ever seen one of those masks that has a clear plastic panel, you would understand how disgusting these things actually are. Children's speech is suffering, and so is their involvement in instruction generally. And multiple students became physically ill in their masks during the hot seasons last year. Students clearly don't understand what's happening, and think that not wearing masks means that they will automatically get the illness. And if you are around kids long enough, you realize that to them, getting the illness and dying of the illness are one and the same. They bully one another because of the masks. I witnessed kids insisting that their peers' family members were going to die. None of this is good for the kids. We have built a tremendous atmosphere of terror into them, and it shows. There are barely kids when they're masked. It's amazing how they change when they get to be outside or at lunch and tear those things off. There are multiple people here tonight who will tell you what we've known since the beginning, which is the virus does not seriously affect kids. There are plenty of natural case studies from places which do not do this, and they show the kids and the staff will be fine. Let me remind you that the mask mandates and the general hysteria of all of this in schools is essentially a bunch of adults being frightened of children. Above all of that, however, most of us are not asking anyone to give it the mask because they don't want to. What we are asking for is that at the very least, parents are given the right to choose if they will mask their children or not. It's worth noting that one side is demanding that other people do what they order them to do, and the other side is simply asking that they're given a choice for the option of what is best for their families. I support families, and I support not being afraid of children. I am, however, concerned for my livelihood of speaking out, which ought to say something about the atmosphere of all of this. It isn't good, and frankly, it isn't very American. All we're asking for is choice. And one more thing, have you ever tried to change the diaper of a 4'8", 130-pound 9-year-old with the mind of a 18-month-old with a stomach problem? Well, then perhaps you ought to take a moment to consider not forcing teachers and support staff to take medical treatments which they do not want, because you could easily lose us and I don't think you want our jobs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Tori Lawler. You can, there we go. All set. All set, Tori.
Okay. Thank you, Board of Ed, for this opportunity to speak. My name is Tori Lawler. I live at 68 Green Street. My husband and I have 2 girls at Harborside, one in the 6th grade, the other in the 7th. I spoke at the last Board of Ed meeting in favor of removing the mask requirement and making them optional. I am frustrated by the extensive opinions tonight of those who say to follow the science and yet reference no scientific data. So let's follow the science. Last month, I referenced a European research study that showed that after 3 minutes of mask wearing in children, the CO2 levels in the inhaled air was above 13,000 parts per million. This is on the order of 13 times what previous research suggests is safe. It was dismissed earlier by an earlier speaker, but I'm not sure why. He didn't give any specifics. I hope that that 13 times increased level of CO2 is of concern for you all, especially given that our children are being required to wear masks for 6 hours. Also at the last meeting, Director Josephs mentioned ventilation as being a key mitigating factor in the spread of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. When I reached out to the Connecticut State Department of Education about masking our children, I received an email referencing a study done by the CDC. You can find it on their website, on the use of cloth face masks in schools in Georgia. This study also talks about ventilation. In fact, it concluded that in schools that improved ventilation through dilution methods alone, COVID-19 incidence was 35% lower, whereas in schools that combined dilution methods with filtration, incidence was 48% lower. I sent information about an air purification technology that kills SARS-CoV-2 in the air and on surfaces to a Board of Ed member back in July who told me to send it to the superintendent, which I did. The technology I am talking about was tested at the University of Florida College of Medicine. Within 15 minutes of its use, there was a 75% reduction in the virus. Within 4 hours, there was a 98% reduction, and within 24 hours, levels were undetectable. The superintendent emailed thanking me for the information and letting me know that they were in talks with the Milford Health Department about several products, determining which one was best suited for the schools. I would like for someone to speak to the outcome of those conversations because I don't see any mention of air purification in the back to school information that was emailed last week. There is mention of ventilation and pulling in more outside air, but not purification. To me, cleaning up the air and achieving that 48% reduction in SARS-CoV-2 as cited by the CDC study makes way more sense, doesn't cause any adverse physical or mental health issues in our children, and can be paid for by FEMA funds. This same CDC study incidentally also concluded that the 21% lower incidence of COVID-19 in schools that required mask use among students was not statistically significant compared with schools where mask use was optional. That is the CDC study. I am not just thinking of my children, I am thinking of all children. And I actually take issue when people telling me that all I'm thinking about is my own kids. That is so far from the truth. We know that there are mental and physical ramifications from wearing masks. For those of you who say I am following the science, follow this science from the CDC's own study in schools, not in hair salons and not on boats, and go for the 48% reduction and not the statistically insignificant 21%, because the risks of masks for children, we're talking about children, are not outweighed by the benefits. I definitely did not let my intelligence go over my emotion like I was taught in PLTI. I apologize for that, but this is, as you can tell, it's just a pretty passionate thing. And I see you waving at me. Yes, my time is done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lawler. And we have Nicole Wilhelm. Let's see.
Hello?
Yes, Nicole, your
Hi,
mic is
can you
live.
hear me? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to thank the entire Milford school system for protecting our kids and all the school staff during this very, very difficult time. I'm here to speak for masking our children and all the school staff. I have 3 children in the Milford school system. 2 go to Orange Avenue and my daughter is at Harborside. All 3 of my kids have no issues wearing a mask. All 3 of them have IEPs for special needs for varying reasons. My oldest daughter has autism. She understands the necessary reasons for wearing masks. I strongly stand by the scientific guidance of mask wearing. My 9-year-old has asthma and severe allergies. He comes home wearing his mask. He doesn't even realize he still has it on when he doesn't even need to have it on any longer. He's sitting in a chair at our home. I think it's very important to continue the mask wearing so we don't end up in a place like you see some of the other southern states that are not requiring masks, Florida, Texas, Missouri. And I want to thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Ms. Wilhelm, do you mind sharing your address for the record?
Oh, sure. It's 164 Woodruff Road.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes the people who had signed up for public comment this evening. So we'll close public comment and we'll move on to the rest of our agenda. Thank you, everybody, for speaking tonight. We appreciate hearing from you. We'll move on to the chair's report. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and I want to welcome back the board members from our little break that we had this summer. I'm thankful that Milford seemed to skirt the brunt of Storm Henri, and I think that everyone is excited to see the new school year get underway in a week or so. I just want to remind the board that we go back to our regular meeting schedule next month with our September business meeting on the 13th and our committee of the whole meeting on the 27th. As you know, we had hoped to meet in person tonight, but when checking in with the health department on protocols, their advice was that we not begin to meet in person just yet because of the rising cases of the variant. It was advice that Ms. Petrosky, Mr. Fowler, and I discussed and decided to take. They suggested that we wait another month and reassess then. Other Milford boards do continue to meet virtually, and from what I determined, only the Board of Aldermen and the Zoning Board of Appeals are meeting in person at this time. There are also other boards of education in Connecticut that continue to meet virtually or have reverted back to meeting virtual for now. We are not alone in this. And I think, as I've mentioned before, the city boards have dedicated use of City Hall chambers, which allows them to spread out. We do not. And since our boardroom is so small, we will be using a high school, probably, we think Jonathan Law, auditorium or cafeteria for our meetings when we do meet in person, which will require a fair amount of staff time to plan, set up and monitor. So I know that we all would like to get back to meeting in person, but I'm weighing what that will involve and what the alternatives are. But hopefully we'll get back to meeting in person soon. So until that time, we will continue to fulfill all the requirements of the legislation and executive orders regarding virtual meetings by live streaming our meeting in real time, by recording and posting the videos to our website page, and by providing opportunity for public comment. So additionally, I also want to let you know that I have reviewed the masking requirement more than once with our board attorney, Attorney Dugas. The mask mandate comes from current executive order and is a binding legal requirement. Board members are elected by the voters of Milford to represent residents' interest in public education and to see that the district is well run. We do that by making the best decisions we can based on the information provided to us by our instructional and operational leaders and other experts, and of course, by hearing where members of the public stand on various issues. However, we are also considered agents of the state of Connecticut. We have gone over this numerous times during legal orientations and when discussing required policy language. As agents of the state, we have a duty to implement the state's interest in public education as well as defined by state statute, and we are legally bound to uphold the state's laws, regulations, and mandates as they pertain to public education. So sometimes we just have to follow the law. So with that said, I will ask for liaison reports. Does anybody have any liaison reports? I'm not sure what boards might be meeting right now. No liaison reports? Okay, perhaps next month we'll have some. We move on then to the superintendent's report. Dr. Kutaya.
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. Thank you, members of the Board of Education. Happy to kick things off with the naming of the tennis courts at Foreign High School, as we've already heard a little bit about that during public comment. And we'd love to turn things over to Mr. Viccitelli.
Thank you, Dr. Kutaya, Mrs. Glennon, members of the board. The administration is honored to recommend to you that you officially name the tennis courts at Joseph A. Foreign High School in memory of Richard A. Herman. I can't say it any more eloquently than Nancy Herman did during the public session. And many of the points that she made are outlined in your agenda item form. So as we know, Mr. Herman was, instrumental in the creation of Foreign High School, but also in the state-of-the-art facilities that that school had in its day and still continues to have today. It's a facility that all of the residents of Milford can be really proud of. And the fact that when in the 70s, when high schools were being built, not all high schools had dedicated tennis court facilities and not dedicated things like planetariums, which are really unheard of. But Mr. Herman saw that vision, and as you heard from Ms. Herman, he was dedicated to tennis, dedicated to education, dedicated to the kids and giving them the very best. What better way to honor his legacy but to name the tennis courts at Joseph A. Foreign High School on French Drive in memory of Mr. Herman. So we're very pleased to recommend that to you, and hope that you vote in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riccitelli. We have action requested on this evening. Ms. Petrosky, do you have a motion?
I do. I make a motion that the Milford Board of Education approves naming the tennis courts at Joseph A. Foreign High School in memory of Richard A. Herman, and officially declares that the court shall be named the Richard A. Herman Memorial Tennis Courts.
A second to the motion?
Mr. Fowler seconds.
Mr. Fowler has seconded. Do we have discussion? Mr. Pulowski?
Yes, thank you. I just quick question. Do the tennis courts have a name right now, or are they just the foreign tennis courts?
Mr. Pulowski, no, there is no name at all on the tennis courts.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ratner?
I actually had the pleasure of knowing Richard. I got to play tennis with him. I don't know anyone that plays tennis at all who lives in Milford, who hasn't played with him at least once. His dedication to education, his passion for tennis, and his care for young people, second to none. I am so thrilled that we are going to do this. This is a wonderful move. Thank you.
Ms. Ratner, any other comments or questions from board members? I have to echo Ms. Ratner's comments. While I'm not a tennis player, I'm very happy to support this renaming of the field of the courts. All right, seeing no other comments, can we have a roll call vote, Ms. Griffin?
Adam DeYoung,
Yes.
Megan Doyle,
Yes.
Andrew Fowler,
Yes.
Rita Hennessy,
Yes.
Emily McDonough Souza,
Yes.
Warren Pulowski,
Yes.
Una Petrosky,
Yes.
Betsy Ratner,
Yes.
Cindy Wolf Boynton,
Yes.
and Susan Glennon.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, board members.
Thank you, everyone. Next agenda item is an update on the American Rescue Plan funds. And Blessing, can I have the right to share my screen, please? Or Ms. Glennon, you might be able to give me that right.
You should be able to do it.
Be able to.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing. Thank you. I'm set. This was sent to board members later in the day. You will find it to look very familiar, but it just will be used to give you an update on how I used to call it ESSER 3. Oh, sorry. I used to call it ESSER 3, but it is the ARP money. In education, we like to use initials and weird names. So we will be using ARP the American Recovery Funds. And so if you recall, board members, we were told about these funds this spring, and the application was released to us in late June. And the requirements I shared with you back in June, actually, I gave you an overview of what money was coming and what the requirements would be. This serves as a update. Our application was due on August 16th. I will tell you, it felt like a crunch to complete this application and get plans in place. So in some areas, I may not have all the answers for you, depending on the questions you have. I will provide you with some overviews on how we plan to spend the monies categorically. And in some areas, they are placeholders. So let me just start by saying that we thought we had more money than the 4.9 million. We were doing an addition problem. We thought we had a little over 5 million, but when the state gave us our allocation of 4.9 and then another 900, we thought we added those two numbers to make 5.8, if you remember back in June. But the 900 actually represented the 20% that is required that we spend for academic supports, learning loss, learning acceleration, and recovery in that first category on this slide. So we fell prey to doing an addition problem along with many other districts in Connecticut. It felt like we were in good company when we contacted the state. They said many of us did that. So you will see that this number is different than the June number. But of the 4.9 million, we are required to spend 20% at least on academic supports. And then the other four categories that we can spend monies in are listed there: family and community connections, safety, social emotional learning, the whole child, the well-being of staff as well. The fourth category, remote learning, staff development, digital services, and then lastly, building safe and healthy schools. And these next three slides should look familiar to you. I won't read them to you. I've shared these slides with you numerous times. This comes straight out of the guidance as to descriptors on how we can spend the monies. These are in your slides as well. These are not new. So let me show you how the application is broken down. And I would give you the specifics under each category. So in the first category that addresses learning acceleration and learning loss, again, a phrase I don't love to use in Milford, but that is the category as identified by the state. We have budgeted for, planned for a little over $1.9 million that will be dedicated to learning acceleration, basically the support of academics. And what we're going to do with this funding is to extend the learning day for elementary, middle, and high school by providing after-school programming for all three levels. We will need to work with our teachers, administrators on planning what that looks like. It doesn't necessarily just look like a credit recovery at the high school, but could also be some inquiry-based hands-on learning experiences for elementary, middle, and high school. We also plan to fund some special summer programming. Again, those details will need some time with our staff to flesh out what that could potentially look like. We have planned to purchase literacy and math materials for all of our elementary schools. The nice thing about this is under normal budgeting years, when you are planning to purchase materials for 200+ classrooms, you really need a multi-year plan to get to every classroom. But with a gift in funding like this, what we can do is revise curriculum according to our curriculum revision cycle and accelerate the purchase of materials and resources. So we have budgeted for materials and resources in literacy and mathematics. We also plan to do more piloting of play-based and executive functioning for preschool and kindergarten. We plan to set up some classrooms in all of our elementary schools. As I have described with you in the past, the furniture for play-based learning, the resources we need in play centers, developing of units, purchasing all the resources for the units. So we do plan to start that project with these funds. And finally, we will likely look at our learning commons at both foreign and law and see what we can do to help students better access those environments, just like the vision has been laid out and how it started at law. So under the first category, those are the big academic pieces that we have planned for categorically. For the second category, which is family and community planning and engagement, we have budgeted $55,000. And while this number appears to be small, there are also some plans in the other categories to engage families, like under social emotional, which is the third category, which will help us plan workshops for not just students, but for families and community as we move forward. But specifically under this second category, we are giving administrators building-based funds that they can use to engage parents in various school-based functions related to acceleration, related to technology supports, related to mental health, social emotional learning, drug and alcohol awareness, social media, college planning, all those parent-based, family-based interests, and really engaging families. So this would be in the fine print of the grant. It does require us to give schools some school-based funding. And our intention here was to give schools school-based funding in order to engage parents in different ways. Under the third category, which is $168,000 planned for, this is specifically for social, emotional, and mental health services. As you know, board and community, we used ESSER 2 to fund 11 additional school counselors, one at each elementary and an additional one at the middle school. We plan to now purchase materials to support school counseling at the elementary and to revise and support a curriculum at the middle and eventually at the high school as well. So the 168 goes toward writing curriculum, purchasing materials in the area of mental health and social emotional learning, and also to provide professional learning for our staff, particularly those new school counselors. Our fourth category is technology, hardware, software, and education related to technology. And so the $843,600 is being dedicated to the purchase of hotspots for families who may not have Wi-Fi or have limited access to Wi-Fi or spotty access. We are also investing in establishing outdoor wireless access points at all of our schools with a renewed interest in outdoor learning. The tents that we have on our facilities, on our grounds, we have found the need to have wireless beyond the bricks and mortar of the building. So we're planning to install outdoor wireless access points at all of our schools. We also want to invest in upgrading the wireless access points so that they are faster, that they are higher density. We're bringing our wireless network to Wi-Fi 6. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I believe it is faster and more dense, I've been told by our digital services department. We also plan to continue our replacement cycle for interactive panels as budgeted in this grant. Our tech ed program, as it's being advanced, needs higher performing laptops. We thought this was an opportunity to purchase those laptops for both high schools. They're a little on the expensive side and we need many of them. And we also have the need to update and replace some Chromebooks just from regular wear and tear and loss and damage. And then finally, the last category is focused on building safety and health. And in this part of the grant, we budgeted for additional desks. Due to social distancing, we are in need of purchasing a very large number of desks because while we are going to 3 feet, we are still needing to go to 6 feet for lunch services. So we are finding the need, particularly at the high school and middle school, putting individual student desks in gyms, libraries, cafeterias, because during lunchtime, Students really need to be 6 feet apart. And we're still, now that we have 100% of our students coming back, even though school was open to, our doors were open to 100% of our students. If you remember, we averaged around 80% to 90%, depending on the time of year of student attendance. Well, we're anticipating 100% of our students coming back. So now we need specifically an individual desk for every single kid, which we didn't necessarily need last year. We're going to fund isolation room monitors. That's also still a requirement with COVID. We are going to go ahead and purchase the tents that we've been renting. It's actually more cost efficient to purchase the tents and store them ourselves. So that is funded here in the grant. We are going to recommission bring in a third party to recommission our HVAC systems. That is required, and we'll be using funding here. For health and safety and air quality purposes, we're looking at replacing carpeting that's still throughout the school district with VCT tile. We are going to invest in HEPA replacement filters. And as was mentioned earlier in this meeting, I have received communication from parents, have been responsive. Our team has met with the health department, and we are in current discussion with vendors around purchasing air purifiers. In fact, there's one vendor, I think, that we've received over a dozen emails just in the last 2 days. I think our team has met with the health department. Actually, at this point, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask Mr. Vigitelli to jump in and talk a little bit about what the plan is with air purifiers and filters and such not. And in the event that I missed something, also Mr. Vigitelli on this 5th category of building and facilities.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Kataya. I'm going to talk a little bit about and be very brief about it, but we have in the schools HVAC systems, heating, ventilation, AC. Very, very little AC, as you know. And heating obviously stands for itself, but ventilation, all of our schools have very effective ventilation systems. And that is the most important factor when it comes to air exchange and keeping the air fresh and free of contaminants. So as Dr. Kataya said, part of the money that will be used for ARP is for recommissioning. We did that last year, and that's having a third party come in and look at all of our mechanical systems to make sure that they're running optimally and that we are achieving the air exchanges that we're required to by code and by standard. I can tell the board that all of our mechanical systems are achieving and exceeding that. And so all of the air exchange that goes through our buildings exceeds what is required even now in the COVID world, because obviously it increased when COVID hit. It means running our systems longer, and it means running them harder, which means more electricity, but that's what we need to do. And when the commissioning agent came in, that was their job, to make sure that our systems were achieving what they needed to achieve by code. So we did that last year before the school year, and we are going to do it again this year. It's already taking place, so that we make sure that we're where we need to be with regard to air ventilation and air exchange in our classrooms. So you've heard many times us and it's kind of the words that are out there, levels of mitigating strategies for making our facilities safer and keeping our students, staff, and everyone else who's in our buildings safe. And so mitigating strategies, as you know, are things, like hand washing and social distancing and things like that. The part of the layers of mitigation for indoor air quality, number one is the ventilation. And then number two, as an enhancement to that ventilation, is filtration. And that's what some of the speakers spoke about tonight. And we have been very, very much engaged in investigation and research. As you can imagine, in this COVID world now, this is an emerging market. And I cannot tell you how many times a day we are solicited by companies that have come up with, new ways of filtering air and, and trying to sell us their products. What we've found in conjunction with our investigation and research with the Milford Health Department and other sources, using the Environmental Protection Agency and Department of DEEP on the state level, is that there's 3 methods of filtration that are kind of on the market today. And I'm not going to go into them. There's UV rays, which basically filter the air, and then the UV lights that are inside the mechanisms kill whatever contaminants there are. There's another process called bipolar ionization. And that's very scientific, but it's very new research, and it's there's not a lot of research that's out there right now. And EPA, because of that, is not recommending it as an effective means for adding layers of mitigation for COVID. So really what we've landed on is air filtration and HEPA filters. It's an acronym. I won't even tell you what it is. I have to look at my screen to remember what it is. But HEPA filters are used in hospitals. They're used in clean room settings. And now they're being used more and more in the workplace. And very soon they'll become more and more in our schools. And what it does is it sucks the air in. It goes through two filtering methods, and then the contaminants are not killed, but they're trapped inside these very, very strong filters. And then the filters need to be changed on a regular basis. There's a shelf life for the filters. So I know I've gone on for way too long with regard to filters, but I know it's on your mind, and I know it's on parents' minds. I can assure you that we, once we get word from the state that our application is accepted, and that we can spend the money on these, that we will have research well done, and we'll come up with a product that can enhance the air that's in our schools. Again, it's not the end all filtration. But it's a second layer after exhaust. And so we will have these devices in our classrooms. And as Dr. Kutaya said, there's many manufacturers and vendors out there, and we're trying to find the one that best suits our facilities in Milford Public Schools. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
And I think I just want to underscore, Mr. Ricitelli, that it is it's a suite of mitigating strategies. It's not one single standalone. So
absolutely,
that sits next to our social distancing, next to our cleaning and disinfecting, next to masking, next to, it's the whole package that we believe successfully kept us safe last year and will continue to this year.
Yes. But just one last thing with regard to this filtration. It's not only COVID related. It can help us with, things like the common cold and flu season and things like that. So, it'll be a good enhancement, and it'll be an excellent use of the money that's in the ARP funding.
And that's all I have, Ms. Glennon, and board members, if you have any questions about ARP.
Questions on this presentation, board members? Mr. Pulowski?
Thank you. I'm just curious, how much do the HEPA filters cost? I know we have to replace the filters themselves on a fairly regular basis. So, like, is there like an initial upfront cost and then an ongoing maintenance cost associated with that?
Well, the initial cost is in the units themselves. The units come with the filters already in them, but yes, they have to be they have to be changed, and different types of units have different changing filter change schedules. They're very expensive. Our estimate is that if we go to a HEPA filter in every one of our classrooms, and this is a very, very, broad estimate at this point, that we will probably spend about $80,000 a year on replacement filters for the HEPA units. So it comes with a big upfront cost. We will build at least 2 years of replacement filters into the grant, but then after that, the district is going to have to bear that cost. It is expensive.
Thank you.
Young?
Thank you. I have 2 questions. I'll stay on the HEPA filters for a second. Mr. Riccitelli, because I know that you do your due diligence quite well, I'm wondering, all of these mitigation strategies, the masks, the distancing, and so on and so forth, the CDC generally puts out, percentages of how effective they are. And so I'm wondering if they've put out that type of information for these HEPA filters, and, based on that, are our schools 20% safer, 30%? What is there a number that goes along with that?
No, not that I'm aware of. Obviously, CDC encourages the use of filtration as as an enhancement to ventilation and air exchange. So does the EPA. I mean, I think the science at this point is that it helps, but how much it helps, it depends on the unit. It depends on the filter. They all claim, all of the HEPA manufacturers claim that they trap or kill 99% of germs, including the COVID virus germs. But I couldn't tell you at this point, how much better it will be. And I think it depends on the square footage of the classroom. It depends on so many different things, but it definitely will help.
So there will be a unit in every classroom?
That's our goal.
Yeah, okay.
That's our goal. We currently have these filters in the nurses' room, the health rooms, and the isolation rooms. So we're looking at, they've been, the units that we have, we believe have been very helpful. So we're looking at that manufacturer as well as many others.
Okay, thanks. The other question I have is not related to the air filters, and probably for you, Dr. Cutaia. I know the state has issued guidance that we're not they're not intending to allow students to learn remotely, even though that was a line item on the ARP money that you presented. So I'm wondering, and you detailed that very clearly about what we'll be using the ARP money for, but I'm wondering, with remote learning and quarantining, how that will work. Will students that have to quarantine throughout the year, because I'm assuming, well, I shouldn't make any assumptions, but will they be allowed to remote learn if they have to quarantine?
Yes, they will. Mr. DeYoung, we did put that out in a letter last week to all families in great detail, thanks to Dr. Fedigan and her team. So if you want, it's like a 2-pager if you go back into my initial letter. There's a link in that letter. It's easy to miss, but it's in there.
Okay.
So anytime we have a COVID-related need to quarantine, as approved through administration, we will allow students to go on remote learning for that period of time. We believe that in-person learning is what's best for kiddos. And that's why we're not going to allow wholesale remote learning as we did last year. And the state isn't allowing it for attendance purposes outside of those special extraordinary situations. So if it's COVID related and the health department is requiring a quarantine, then we'll allow remote learning. It will not look like last year. There will be different nuances. We will have some teachers specifically assigned to those students. It will be a combination of synchronous and asynchronous. So it won't be a login at 8:30 and you're done at 3:30 all day like last year. So there are different nuances to it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
It's better spelled out on page 2 of that document. And if you need it for me to send it, I will. Okay.
Thanks. I'm sure I have it. I'll take a look. Thank you.
We have other questions on the ARP presentation from board members. Ms. Ratner, I saw your hand up. Did your question get answered?
Yes, it did. Having had a HEPA filter, a large one for the square footage for my home, I'm able to keep it in a spot where it hits the entire house. And yet here we're talking about individual classrooms, so you can't help but the price to go up, I understand. My question got answered.
Thank you. Any other questions on this presentation? Okay, I see none. We can move on to the next item, Dr. Kutaya.
Thank you. Just giving you a preliminary enrollment report. So I'm going to ask board members to take a look and make one change on the spreadsheet that was sent home to you. If you go to the high school numbers, it is listed foreign, law, the academy, and Parsons. If you could please strike out the word foreign and write law, and strike out the word law and write foreign. Those two got flipped. My apologies. Okay. We caught that today. Okay, so I'm going to give some overview numbers. I'm not going to go school by school. I'm going to do a district view and then by level. And if you have any specific questions. And I'm so sorry, Ms. Ratner, to ask you to do this, but can you mute because I'm getting some feedback from you. Thank you so much. Are we good? All right, thank you. So overall, we have 63 more students in district than we projected for this school year. So we are 63 over projection and 18 over actual enrollment last year. That's total district numbers. But that's as of the chart that you received on 8/19. Since then, we've already enrolled almost 10 more students. But we're also disenrolling students. So this year, more than any other year that I've experienced in Milford, we are keeping an eye on our enrollment numbers a couple of times a day, actually. We are getting updates every morning that we walk in the door and then later in the day. I'm not sure if it's because offices may or may not have been open throughout the summer in other school districts. We're getting late requests for records. And so just for your information, when we get a request for record from another school district, that means a student's moving out. And that's how we typically find out that we're disenrolling a child. So in my office, even in my office, we're getting lots of those faxed just this week. So the number, I believe, will continue to go up and down a little bit more as we get closer to September 1st. So let's talk about elementary a moment. Elementary is the level that we exceeded our expectations on projections greater than any other level. We have 79 more students than projected and 62 more students than last year's enrollment. That's a big double digit. And that is without preschool. If we wanted to add preschool, it's 66 more than projection and 72 more than actual enrollment. So where do we see the greatest jump? I mean, and it's not always that you hit the mark on kindergarten, but kindergarten, we projected 371 and we're at 371. So we're just right on the nose there. But surprisingly, I would have never placed a bet on this. We have 15 more third graders than projected. Typically in our field, the older the child is, the more stable the enrollment is. So to have 15 more third graders was a surprise on our side. So 15 more than projected. So that was our biggest bump compared to projection at the elementary. In middle school, we have 13 more students than projected. and 16 fewer than last year's actual enrollment. We did see an increase of 10 more students in 6th grade than projected, compared to 3 fewer students in 8th grade than projected. And then the number at the high school is less positive. We have 16 fewer students at the high school than projected, and 38 fewer than last year's actual enrollment. This is a nice number to share. We have 24 more freshmen than anticipated coming in. So we projected, they have 24 more than projected. I know that Dr. Fettigan's office has been busy talking to some transfers from private schools to public school. That's been a big jump, I think, from 8th to 9th grade. So it's nice to see some families being reinterested in the public school system. So again, just to, I guess bottom line it, we have more students than we projected and more students than we had last year. And those are 2 great headlines for Milford Public Schools. I'll take questions at this point.
Any board members with questions? Mr. DeYoung?
Thank you. When you say that you projected, is that something that you projected from the start of school last year, or how does the projection work?
So we place our projections in the budget book. So specifically Roman numeral page 6 from your budget book could give you those numbers, Mr. DeYoung.
So
It gives you last year's actual and the projected. So if you want to do your own math, you could reference that page. But projections are done via a third party. We actually commission that from 2 different parties. Malone McBroom will give us an update, and they did last year in particular with COVID. And then we get one from NESDEC, which is a popular demographer in the state of Connecticut. So we actually get those projections when October 1st numbers are filed. Dr. Fettigan's office sends those to the demographer, and they send it to us, and we try to get it by November 1st-ish. That never really happens. And then we're able to use those numbers to bake it into the budget for the following year. So those are projections as they are written on Roman numeral page, I'm not 6, sorry, 11. Roman numeral 11 in the budget book.
All right, that's great. And so that the number that you said that our enrollment is up, certainly that will change between now and October, one way or the other. But then once that number is set in stone, that will be our projection for next year. Or that will.
We send our October 1st numbers to the demographer. They do their demographic magic. They consider birth rate. They have a statistical number on move in, move out, depending on the trending, the real estate market. So they do their statistician work on, and then they feed us back projections.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Mr. Fowler?
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. Just a quick question. I know you, Dr. Kataya, you said you were concerned about the disenrolled figures. What are we at right now in that department? I know it's good to hear that we're above our projection and actual enrollment, but what's that number look like right now?
Oh, I'm not concerned about disenrollment. I'm concerned about the presence of employees in offices for us to get that information on a timely manner. My worry is that we're getting disenrollments later in the summer than we're used to. Okay. So I don't actually track how many have left and how many have enrolled. We just do a net normally.
Okay.
What I do in my office, I keep a score sheet on by grade, by school, how many do we project and how many we're getting. So I'm looking for the whole. So for example, at Orchard Hills, we projected 45 kindergarteners. We registered 60. Right. So that's the kind of numbers I'm following. And then on the converse, we projected 43 at Live Oaks, and we only have 34. So that's the kind of review I'm doing. And then we don't normally get a whole lot of disenrollment. We have a pretty stable population, but obviously that impacts our total enrollment. So my concern was just getting that on a timely basis.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions on the preliminary enrollment report? So just to remind board members, Mr. DeYoung touched on this. October 1st is the official enrollment, and that's the enrollment that carries us through the rest of the year that the state uses for various items. So that's the important number, what happens on October 1st.
So
And we will get another
preliminary. This is
Yes.
preliminary.
We'll get another report in October on the actual enrollment.
Sorry, I need to bring up my computer that fell asleep. Next item is the food services year-end report, and invite Ms. Eileen Faustich to present that to us.
Thank you, Dr. Kataya and Board of Ed members. I have in your packet, there is the food service financial report. It's a one-page spreadsheet, but I also have a really quick presentation of our year to summarize the year financially. I believe Blessing has the presentation. Or I'm not sure. I can actually, I think I have
We
it.
can see it. Can you see it, Ms. Faustich?
I can see it. Yes. Can you see
We can
it?
see it.
All right.
Yes, we can.
So, okay, so the food service financial report covers the period of time for July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. It is our full pandemic food service, impact of the pandemic on our food service. The most important thing that we did during this time is to feed children. We fed kids in many different ways, and what I'm going to talk about real quick is the highlights of how many meals we served, how we balanced our budget, what I think were factors in our success this year, as well as what's happening for next year in terms of meals and what might be new. So first of all, we increased our breakfast meals significantly. We increased our breakfast meals by 244%. We served 269,060 meals last year, and that's over 326 days. So normally,
Eileen, can you, bless you, can you move to the next slide? Here we go. Thank you. Sorry, Eileen.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Faustich, I think you'll have to tell him whenever you want him to advance the slides.
Okay. Yeah. So our blessings were on the breakfast meals increased. So this is where we had the most significant meals served. And then we've served meals on school days, remote learning days. We served when we were completely remote throughout the summer, and that's the entire year from last summer through June 30th this year. So and that's why it shows that we serve for 326 days out of the year. Normally in a school year, obviously we serve only on school days. That would be like 186 days or something like that. So we were able to increase our breakfast participation, not only with the throughout having weekend meals and remote meals, but there was a significant increase in our daily participation of students, which is really, really awesome. Blessings. Next slide, please. So lunches increased by 19.7%. We served 459,146 meals. Also for the 326 days. Next slide, blessings, please. So you already know this, but we have we made it through the year and we balanced the budget, and we are at a positive balance of $88,110, and I am particularly happy about that. at the beginning of this year, I wasn't sure that that would be possible. So I am very proud to say that. So why were we successful? Why were we successful? I'm sorry, next slide, please, Blessings. We were successful most primarily because the USDA allowed us to serve free meals to all students. The USDA also put into effect somewhere around 40 waivers so that we could change the way we serve meals, not to limit us to just in-person meals, but we were able to serve them remotely in the afternoon, in the morning, weekends, 5 days a week, 7 days a week, whatever way we could possibly serve and reach kids, we did it. And the USDA allowed, with all the policy changes that they made, we were allowed to do that. Typically, we wouldn't be able to do that. And then the last thing is my my food service team was probably one of the biggest reasons for our success. So Blessings, next screen, please. I think we just, Blessings, you can scroll through the next couple of slides. They're just a couple of pictures of my staff. They served in the rain and the snow and then bright sunny days. We even made it on, if you go to the picture of the free lunch with my staff wearing one of the t-shirts from JFK, we were on the back of the shirt, which was, they were excited to have the free lunch during this time. It's something that we haven't always experienced, and many people, the majority of folks in Milford never had free lunch at school. So it's really been a big difference. So the last thing is for next year. We have, the USDA has allowed us to serve free meals to all students next year, free of charge, which is awesome. It is such a great program. Not only do kids benefit from having food in school in the morning, in the afternoon, it takes the stigma away of who can pay for their meal and who can't. Kids come to school, they don't, if they don't have money in their account in the past, they worry whether they're going to they're hungry, and they worry whether we're going to feed them or not. Of course, we always fed them, but the kids worry about that. It just takes another worry away from kids when they come to school. So I think it's been a really good thing to do for kids in our districts. And parents have saved a lot of money by not having to pay for lunch. One of the things why I think there was a lot of increase in breakfast is because if a family has multiple children, maybe they can buy lunch a few times a week, but they're certainly not going to be able to afford necessarily breakfast and lunch. Now they can participate if they want to. They get a nutritious meal, and it really helps us financially. I just threw in a few things about what we are going to do next year. We won't be doing remote learning, so we won't be doing curbside meals. That won't be allowed. I'm working on getting some back to menu planning and trying to offer different things once we can lighten up on how we can serve them. It doesn't have to be in a bag, and I know that more kids come to the cafeteria. As things lighten up for the pandemic, then we can loosen our ability to offer, we can expand our ability to offer more foods and different foods. So that's what I'm hoping to do for next year. One of the things we also want to do is increase our promotions on the website, and we have a spot on the mobile app. Next slide, please, Blessings, where there's a news feed, and one of the things we are working on is getting lunch on the menu every day at all the schools, so you just have to reach for your mobile device and you know what's for lunch today, instead of searching on the website to find the menu and downloading it. It really makes it a lot easier and quicker for families and kids, especially kids, to know what's for lunch. So the final slide is one of the things we have been promoting is school meals for all. It's at no cost to families. They're healthy and nutritious. They're available to all children. It supports local farms and businesses, and it supports our school district by allowing us to provide meals and getting reimbursed for those meals. We are not, we didn't have to be subsidized by the Board of Ed directly with to make up for a deficit that we may have had. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Faustich? Ms. Ratner?
I'm curious in regards to the local businesses and the local farms, how they get involved and who are they? Which ones?
Well, local is considered the state of Connecticut and our bordering states. So I'm trying to get more local produce, but our deliveries that we get, the vendors that supply us with food, are all Connecticut-based businesses, and by us being able to serve meals in every which way possible, we were able to move food through the existing channels, and keep them going in terms of being ready to serve food in the future when we get past the pandemic. So all of all the businesses in Connecticut and nationwide are really that support us throughout for many, many years. We wanted to support, and we needed to support those businesses. Otherwise, we won't have them to deliver food to us.
So if I could piggyback another question, what's the procedure if there was a local farm that wanted to be part of this from Milford to give to Milford?
Well, they could contact me directly, and we have to follow certain procurement procedures, but we will welcome local farms that would like to supply us. We don't have a lot of local farms that could supply every school every day with a particular item, but I'm trying to look more targeted in terms of maybe I can do, what I can do from the local farming. Obviously, they can't necessarily supply everything all the time because we serve a lot of fruits and vegetables. So they really don't have the capacity. We need to use our distributors that bring large volumes of produce. Thousands of dollars a week we spend on fruits and vegetables. So I'm looking at maybe bringing in things that are more local, more specialized, that are different, that maybe are offered in the local vendors. So
thank you.
Young?
Thank you. I just wanted to quickly comment that it's pretty remarkable what you did. I think it's easy for people to forget that we were, looking at possibly, as I recall, close to a $2 million deficit at the beginning of COVID, really with no end in sight, except you had the vision and your team had the vision to get us there, work with what you had to make sure that we didn't end up that way. I think it's a real testament to what you've done. I think the taxpayers of Milford should be celebrating this, because I think there's a lot of communities that may not be in our particular situation. And I also commend you on making it easy for families to get this information, to get this food, because you're absolutely right. It is a stress that was on families from the very beginning of the pandemic. It still is for many families a stress, and it's terrific that it's going to continue. So not only I applaud everybody that's involved in the organization of this, because it was one of many shining things that we did as a district during COVID, or continue to do during COVID. So thank you so much for everything that you and your staff have done. It's really remarkable.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. If I could just make one more pitch. I am in need of food service workers. We've had, in the past week and a half, I've had at least 6 or 7 resignations, 2 just today. So I am in need of food service staff. We have job openings on our website. Please encourage moms and dads that want to work during school days with their children. We have a really good team, and we need to bring more people on. So if anyone has any questions, send them my way. I'd appreciate it. So thank you very much for your time.
Pulowski, did you have a question?
Thank you. I just sort of want to echo what Mr. Young said and just thank you. What you and your team have managed in the last year is just great. It's just incredible. And not just having a more than balanced budget, but just feeding all these families who were in need. I just think it's just wonderful. It's a wonderful program and it's a wonderful outcome. So just thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the thing that probably warmed my heart the most. Knowing with all the hardships that members of the community have had in the last, 18 months or so, to know that kids who needed food had food in their bellies. Clearly, families took advantage of this opportunity, and I'm just grateful that they had the opportunity to take advantage of it. So thank you for all the hard work and. The photos of the staff members that we would see periodically also, it was just joyous. So thank you. Anybody else questions on the food service report? Okay, seeing none. Dr. Kutaya, we can move on
Next
to
order
the
of business is the Human Resources Report by Ms. Capazna.
Thank you. In my monthly report, you have the list of all the job postings still, and the personnel changes for the month, retirements, resignations, and stipend appointments, including the fall coaching stipends at both of the high schools. Sorry, they were great all night until now, right? Dogs. So I just want to point out a few things. Obviously, Eileen mentioned she's looking for people for her staff, and we're also looking for lunch aides. So there are quite a bit of holes that we're looking to fill still. But the great news is that we have about 52 teachers hired so far on board, most of them starting tomorrow with the Milford Teachers Academy. We have about 3 offers out to potential staff members, and we're looking to hire about 11 more teachers. Many of those 11, there's people in the hopper in the process. It's not like we're starting fresh with them. And as far as retirements, I think we landed around 24, 25. I'd have to confer with Mr. Richitelli on that. But we did have more than expected for many reasons. And, we're sad about that, but we're happy that we're almost fully staffed and working to be fully staffed within the next week.
Questions from board members? Ms. Doyle?
Hi, thank you. My question is I don't know if it would be Ms. Capazna or Ms. Faustich that would answer this question. Is it possible to get a budget of increasing the rates for the cafeteria workers and increasing their hourly wage at some point?
So the cafeteria, well, there's 2. There's lunch aides, which are non-union people that kind of do lunchroom management, if you will. And then there's cafeteria aides, cafeteria workers who are working under a collective bargaining agreement. So that would have to be bargained. Our lunch aides, we are trying to keep ahead of minimum wage with them. Minimum wage is now $13 an hour. And I think they're paid, oh gosh, I can't remember their hourly wage.
We just increased it, didn't we?
We increased it in the spring to keep ahead of it. So yeah, I mean, it's something we would definitely consider, especially in these times.
Thank you.
If that would be a budgetary item when we look at the budget for next year.
Correct, yep.
Other questions, Mr. Pulowski?
Thank you. We have a lot of open positions, so I'm wondering, is it a question of the talent is not available, that it's not out there, it's just the talent pool is very small, or are we having difficulty actually attracting the talent to Milford? I'm just wondering if there's any sort of insights that you can give us as to why we still have so many vacancies.
Okay, so first of all, the report that you have was done almost a week ago ahead of time. So it's definitely reduced a lot over the past week. That's one thing. 2, we are in competition for a lot of the same people that all the districts around us are in competition for. And we see, and I've seen this every year for the past 15 years, August. So July, kind of you see some movement. As soon as August hits, everybody is making their decisions, which impacts everybody around you. I go to Stratford, I fill my job from West Haven. So we're kind of just like all in a giant circular motion. So I don't know that this is any different than any other year, other than we do have some additional positions that we've added, which is great. So that's really kept us busy. I mean, the 11 new school counselors, we've secured all of them, which was amazing. But no, yeah, I think we're doing a great job with attracting the talent that we need.
Excellent. Thank you.
Faustich, did you want to make a comment? You have your hand up. You have to unmute.
Okay. So I just wanted to make a comment that lunch aides make $13.50 an hour, and food service staff start at $13.88 an hour and go up to $15 and $15.60 an hour after they meeting their probationary period. So it does pay more than lunch aides.
Hey, stealing my talent.
Yep.
No, but both of those positions also, just so you know, are part-time. So you're attracting a certain type of individual that, that wants part-time, needs part-time, can afford part-time. So that's another factor for both of us.
Any other questions on the food services report? Okay, thank you, Ms. Kapazna.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to the disbursement report. Mr. Riccitelli?
Thank you, Dr. Kataya. Members of the board, in your package, you have a listing of all of the disbursements for the district for the month of July over the amount of $1,500. In addition, we've highlighted in yellow at your request those items that are COVID related, and I am happy to answer any questions that you have on the report.
Any board members have questions on this report? Okay, I see none.
That concludes my superintendent's report, Ms. Glennon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kutaya. We move on to consent agenda. Ms. Petrosky, do you have a motion?
I do. I have a motion that the Milford Board of Education approves consent agenda item A, consideration of minutes for the July 12th, 2021 business meeting.
Your second?
I second.
Mr. Fowler has seconded. I'm sorry, Ms. Griffin, can we have a roll call vote?
Adam DeYoung,
Yes.
Megan Doyle,
Yes.
Andrew Fowler,
Yes.
Rita Hennessy,
Yes.
Emily McDonough Souza,
Yes.
Warren Pulowski,
Yes.
Una Petrosky,
Yes.
Betsy Ratner,
Yes.
Cindy Wolf Boynton,
Yes.
and Susan Glennon.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. We move on to new business. Ms. Petrosky, do you have a motion for the action item?
I do. I have a motion that the Milford Board of Education approves the working agreement between the Milford Board of Education and the Milford Association of School Administrators, MASSA, July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2025.
Second?
I second. Mr. Fowler seconds.
Mr. Fowler has seconded. Do we have discussion? I wanted to thank Mr. Pulowski for representing the board on the negotiating team. And I also, as he indicated, has indicated to me that the negotiations went quite smoothly this year. And I would just like to express some appreciation to the administration, our administrators, our MASSA members for such a smooth process. Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, seeing none, can we have a roll call vote, Ms. Griffin?
Adam DeYoung,
Yes.
Megan Doyle,
Yes.
Andrew Fowler,
Yes.
Rita Hennessy,
Yes.
Emily McDonough Souza,
Yes.
Warren Pulowski,
Yes.
Una Petrowski,
Yes.
Betsy Ratner,
yes,
Cindy Wolf Boynton,
Yes.
and Susan Glennon.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. All right, we move on to board comment. Do we have any board members this evening who would like to make board comment? Mr. Fowler?
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. I just want to thank for everyone who came and, offered their opinion, share their opinion with the board tonight. And I just want to express that I hope that we can have our meeting in person next time, because I think it is important for the sake of transparency and everything. Just have a vital group community discussion. And I think I just want to commend the people that came and talked to us. Thank you.
Ms. Petrowski?
I want to echo what Mr. Fowler just said. I certainly appreciate having the community come and speak to us and give us their thoughts and their opinions. I think it's critically important that we hear those things. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that I appreciate that they came and did so.
Thank you. Mr. DeYoung?
Thank you. I'll third that and also say that I believe this is our last meeting before school opens on the 1st. I think many families and parents are excited for kids to get back to school a full year in person. I know there's a lot of discussion around what it looks like, how it's going to be. And I think based on the last 18 months or the last year and a half of school, I think we can all be really confident and comfortable in our administrators, our teachers, our school staff, that they will do whatever is best for kids and to keep them safe and learning, which is so critical, especially during this time and all the time. So I'm very excited about it. I thank you all that are on this call for your work in getting us ready to go, all of the principals and teachers and staff. I think it's going to be an excellent 21-22 school year, and September 1st can't come fast enough for this father.
Thank you, Mr. DeYoung. Is there any other board member that would like to make board comment this evening? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Una Petrowski, a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Fowler seconds.
Fowler seconds. Is there anyone opposed to adjourning? Okay, seeing none, we will adjourn at 8:59 p.m. Thank you all, and we'll see you on September 13th.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.